Boldwood presents The Life She Could Have Lived, written by Laura Pearson and read by Laura Kerman. Prologue. Friday, 5th of June, 1992. Anna finished the wine in her glass and gestured for Nia to pour her another. "I just don't understand," she started to say. "I know," Nia cut in. "You don't understand why he didn't call. It was perfect, Nia. It was so perfect. And that's why we're going to see Magda. We're going to get some answers. I don't know about Magda." Magda was Nia's next-door neighbour. She read tarot cards in her conservatory and had successfully predicted Nia's driving test fails, 3, and her subsequent pass. Nia's dad's recovery from prostate cancer, and Nia's appearance on a local radio quiz show. Nia believed that Magda could predict anything. 4 weeks and 3 days ago, Anna had met a man called James on the bus after accidentally poking him in the knee with the end of her umbrella, and they had got chatting, got off the bus together at Trafalgar Square, and gone on a long walk that had led to coffee and then dinner and then a moonlit walk along the Thames. It had been the most romantic day of Anna's life. When James had kissed her, Anna had felt all those things you read about in books, the fireworks and the fizzing and the rush of pure joy. He'd taken her number and promised to call the next day, and it hadn't crossed her mind even once that he wouldn't. But he hadn't. Not the next day, or the one after that. Not for 4 weeks and 3 days. Hence Magda. Nia knew that Anna was a skeptic. She'd lured Anna over to her house with the promise of wine and a video showing of Point Break, Keanu for Anna, Patrick for Nia, and then after a couple of glasses, she'd mentioned Magda, that she'd already made the booking, that it was in half an hour. "Come on," Nia said. "I mean, what have you got to lose? We'll ask her to tell us about the loves of our lives, and then you can see whether it sounds like James is the one, in which case we need to find him, or whether you've just dodged a bullet." "I don't believe in the one," Anna said, "and I don't believe in psychics either." "But what if you're wrong?" Anna let that thought settle. What if she was wrong? What if this woman next door with her tarot cards and tea leaves and whatever the hell else these people used could really see into Anna's future? She took another big gulp of wine, as if it might drown her doubts. "Okay," she said, smiling as Nia started to clap her hands and do a little victory dance. "Okay, let's do it. But when we get back, we watch Point Break. Promise?" Chapter 1. Monday, 5th of June, 2000. When Anna reached the table where Edward was sitting, his face lit up. He was looking at her with the same expression he'd worn on their wedding day a year before, when he'd stood at one end of the aisle and she'd stood at the other, waiting to walk towards him. Like she was precious. Like he couldn't quite believe it. He looked refreshed, no sign on his face or the drape of his suit of the long day he'd just put in at the office. He looked like a man who'd been waiting for his wife. She sometimes had to remind herself that that was her. "Hello," Anna said. She reached a hand out and Edward touched her palm with his, like a very slow high five. It was a thing they did. She didn't remember how it started. "Hello," Edward said. "So, year 1 done." "That's right. Just an eternity to go now." Anna laughed, then reached into her bag and pulled out a parcel. "For you," she said. "For me?" Edward tore off the paper and pulled out the small notebook Anna had chosen. "What is it? Look inside." Anna watched his face as he began to turn the pages. It was a collection of photographs of the two of them. She'd had them printed off and stuck them in this book and written little joke-laden captions with reminders of where they'd been and what they'd been doing. One from their London wedding, one from the honeymoon in Rome, one from the first holiday they'd ever gone on together, to Mallorca. She'd made sure that in every photo it was just them. No friends, no family. While putting it together, she'd been flooded with happy memories. When they'd first met, Anna had had a broken heart. She'd been cheated on by a boyfriend she'd thought she might be with forever, and Edward had been patient, understanding her need to take it slowly, reminding her that he was there, that he always would be. She'd found his solidness reassuring. He was loyal, to family, to friends, to his work even. It was comforting, and at that time, comfort had mattered more than excitement. She hoped that it always would. She'd staked her life on it. "Wow," he said. "This is wonderful. Thank you so much." Anna beamed. She'd taken a long time over the present and enjoyed seeing how much he liked it. "Happy anniversary," he said. Anna wanted to kiss him, thought about the way she would kiss him when they were alone. "I still can't believe I finally persuaded you to marry me." They'd got married 4 years after meeting, which felt reasonable to Anna. The first time Edward had asked her, it had only been a year, and she'd said she wasn't ready. How could you know after 1 year that you wanted to spend your life with someone? How could he be so sure? Anna knew she had plenty of faults, from leaving her things all over the bathroom to being snappy and mean when she was tired. Edward always teased her about the fact that she struggled to make up her mind. That was another one. It baffled her sometimes that Edward felt so confident that he would always want to be with her. But he waited for her, asked again a year later, and again another year after that. Anna had remained determined that she wouldn't say yes until it felt right. And that final time, it had. When the waiter came, Edward ordered a bottle of champagne. A year before, they'd drunk champagne in a crowded room and kissed and danced until Anna felt dizzy. They clinked glasses, looked in each other's eyes. "I love you," Edward said. "I love you too." Over starters of grilled cod, Edward asked how her day had been. Anna had just started a new job as a publicist at the publishing house, where she'd worked on reception for most of the time they'd been together. "Great," Anna said. "I have so many ideas. I mean, I've always had them, but it was never really appropriate to suggest them before. It's so nice to finally be in the inner circle, to feel like what I think matters, to be taken seriously." Anna's years spent working on reception had been a source of much frustration. Doing that kind of job in her late 20s had never been the plan. She decided at 15 that she was going to be a journalist, and every step she'd taken had stemmed from that. An English degree, followed by a journalism course. 2 years on a local paper, and then a little boy had been killed in a car accident, and she'd been asked by her editor to go to the house, get a quote from the parents, and she'd known, 10 years after deciding that this was the career for her, that it wasn't. She'd walked out, moved back in with her mum for a bit while she tried to formulate a new plan. And then, in her haste to make a quick decision, she'd made a couple more wrong ones. When she'd first met Edward, she'd just abandoned a PGCE. By the time she'd settled on publishing, which seemed so right that she couldn't believe she hadn't realised it before, a lot of her friends were nicely settled into their careers, Edward too. She'd made a few unsuccessful applications for editorial roles, and then applied to be a receptionist, determined to work her way up from the inside. The first step of which had taken longer than she'd expected. "How was your day?" she asked. Their starters had been cleared away, and just then a waiter appeared with their steaks. Edward cut into his to make sure it was medium, just how he liked it. "Pretty good," he said. "I had a 1-to-1 with Holmes. He said he thought I'd be in his shoes this time next year. He's hoping to step up, and he's told his boss that I'm the only one of his team in a position to take over his role. I'd have a team of 20. "That's great," Anna said. Anna was proud of Edward, despite not fully understanding what he did. No matter how many times he tried to explain it, she felt no more informed. He worked for an investment bank, had joined on their graduate recruitment scheme, and been promoted 3 times in 10 years. It wasn't a meteoric rise, but it was significant. It was clear that he was going places, that he would be on the board by the time he was 40. A couple of times, recruiters had tried to lure him away, but he'd remained loyal, and he told her often that the bank valued that loyalty in him and would repay it. The money he made was approximately 4 times her salary, and she didn't much like to think about that. "Anyway," Edward said, "that's enough talk about work." Anna was relieved. Edward worked hard and he deserved this success, but she wasn't all that interested in it. In the money or the steps that led steadily upwards to bigger offices and more sprawling teams and longer hours and probably an ulcer. It wasn't the side of Edward that she'd fallen in love with. She wanted to see the man who had made her laugh until there were tears streaming down her cheeks and her mascara was ruined on the night they'd met. The man who turned things she was saying to him into lyrics and sang them to her as soft rock ballads. The man who put his hand on the back of her head in public places and whispered in her ear about what he'd like to do with her. "What shall we do at the weekend?" she asked. "Stay in bed, eat Chinese food, and watch documentaries about serial killers," he said, as if he'd been waiting for her to ask exactly that. Anna laughed. "I think we might have watched them all. I was thinking we could go out on the bikes, maybe get out of the city." Edward sighed, pretending to be annoyed. "Okay, we'll do your thing on Saturday and mine on Sunday. Deal." Can you believe the wedding was a year ago? I feel like it's flown. I'm still not used to saying wife instead of girlfriend. Anna thought back to that day. It had been so joyful. They'd pushed back against everyone's demands and done everything just the way they'd wanted to. An ice cream van outside the venue while the photographs were being taken. A Britpop disco, brightly coloured streamers everywhere in place of flowers because of Edward's hay fever, and 3 choices of dessert at the dinner because of Anna's sweet tooth. "It was the best day," she said. He reached across the table and took her hand. "Shall we skip dessert? Go home?" Anna glared at him. "Just kidding." They ordered a raspberry cheesecake and a creme brulee to share, and Edward let Anna eat most of both, sitting back and sipping at his drink, laughing while she rolled her eyes to show how good they were. This was happiness, wasn't it? This was what people searched for. How lucky they were, Anna thought, to have found it, to have kept it. And then Edward launched into a story about his friend Rav at work and a senior manager who kept getting the 2 of them mixed up, despite them being different races and Edward being at least 6 inches taller. And Anna was laughing again, her sides hurting with it. They got up, walked out hand in hand, people turning to look as Edward kept up his impression of the manager, who had a strong Scottish accent. "But didn't I talk to you about this last week? What do you mean that wasn't you?" She suggested getting a taxi home, and he agreed. Her feet were hurting, and she didn't fancy the tube and the walk up the hill to their flat at the other end. She hailed a black cab and they climbed inside, and she took her shoes off and he put his arm around her, pulled her into his chest. They lived in a 2-bedroom flat in Clapham. It was a Victorian conversion, and they had the downstairs, which meant they had a garden, but it also meant they could hear their upstairs neighbours walking around at all hours. Edward let them in, and Anna put the kettle on. When she brought the drinks through to the living room, he was looking at the door as if waiting for her. "Sit down," he said, patting the space next to him. He reached out and took one of the mugs she was holding, and she put the other one down on the coffee table and sat. "I want to talk to you about something." Perhaps he was about to suggest a holiday, she thought, or even a prolonged period of travelling. He knew that Anna regretted not taking a year out like so many of her friends had, that she'd never backpacked around Asia visiting temples and experimenting with Buddhism. Would she be a different person if she had? Maybe he was going to suggest taking some time out of their lives and exploring. She pictured herself, barefoot, on a beach. Edward reached for her hand, took hold of it. "I want us to have a baby," he said. A baby? Anna felt as though she'd been punched in the stomach. It wasn't like they'd never talked about it, but it had always felt abstract somehow, something for the future. She hadn't expected to be making a decision about it yet, but she had to ask herself why not. She was 30, she was married, she owned her home, some of her friends were starting to have babies. Why did the suggestion come as such a surprise? Anna closed her eyes and tried to imagine herself as a mother, a baby in her arms, in this flat. Edward a proud father. She could see it. Of course she could. When she didn't say anything for a few moments, he began to prod her with words. "You know, I understand your reluctance," he said. Anna looked at him. Did he? She wasn't even sure she did. "We won't be like your parents," he said. Anna felt rankled. She'd done her fair share of moaning about her parents to him, but it felt different when he mirrored that back. Harsher, somehow. "My mum did her best. She just had to work so hard because of my dad leaving." Edward picked up her hand from where it was resting on her lap. "But I won't leave, and you won't have to work hard, and it will all be so different for us, I promise." At the mention of working hard, Anna thought of another objection. "I just started in my new role," she said. "What will they think?" "Anna," Edward said, "that's your job, and this is your life." It was true, but it had taken her so long to get to this stage, and it was only the first step on the ladder she wanted to climb. She went back over his words. It will all be so different. Would it be different? Anna had sometimes thought that you must learn how to be a mother from your own mother, and she didn't feel like she'd learned so much. What if she made the same mistakes? Never saying "I love you," never saying she was proud. What if that was just a pattern she was destined to repeat? "Anna," Edward asked, "what do you think?" "Talk to me," Nia said. Anna had locked herself in the bathroom to call her best friend. She kept her voice low, tried to remember how to breathe normally. "Edward wants us to have a baby," she said. "And? What do you want?" What did she want? When they'd been about 15, Nia sleeping over at Anna's house, both of them lying on Anna's bed at 2 in the morning, they'd talked about the future, about what they wanted, what they dreamed about. For Nia, it had been clear. She'd wanted a job in TV production. She had a cousin who did something similar, and a husband who was funny and rich, possibly the star of one of the TV shows she'd worked on, who had dark hair and blue eyes. She wanted children, a busy house, school photos on the wall, and notes stuck to the fridge with alphabet magnets. Anna had struggled to articulate her own dream, which was fuzzier, more blurred. She talked about feeling content, secure, loved. She didn't know by whom. It was more a feeling than a vision. She wanted to be part of a team. She wanted someone who knew all her stories and still laughed at them, who made her feel like she was important, who didn't try to change her into something else. Nia had listened and said that she could do all that, and didn't Anna want passion and everlasting love too? And shortly after that, Nia had fallen asleep, and Anna had gone on thinking about it. "Remember when we were teenagers and we used to talk about what we wanted our futures to look like?" Nia laughed. "Anna, that is half our lives ago. And yes, of course I remember. You rambled about this feeling that you were looking for, and you had no idea what it should look like in practical terms. And I still don't, Nia. I still don't know what it should look like. I think that's the problem. I've always thought I would have children because it's just what you do, but when Edward suggested actually doing it right now, I felt like I couldn't breathe." "Try to calm down," Nia said. "Close your eyes. Think of yourself holding a baby, with Edward next to you. Now, how do you feel?" Anna shrugged, though she knew Nia couldn't see her. "I don't know." "Not that elusive feeling? I mean, maybe. I just don't know. I can't feel it. I can't tell." Anna paused, unsure whether she wanted to ask the question that kept coming to the forefront of her mind. "Nia, yes? When Edward and I first met, you said you didn't think we fitted. Do you still think that? Nia was quiet. Then, did I say that? You know you did. Okay, I'm sorry, Anna. You know me, I was probably drunk. You fit. You totally fit. I think it was just because of what Magda said. 8 years earlier, Nia's neighbour, Magda, had read their tarot cards. She'd said Nia would have one big love and one child, and then they'd moved on to Anna. Magda had frowned, said that there would be some tragedy, but there would also be love. She had taken Anna's hand and said that the great love of her life would have a name that started with J. Nia had gasped and clasped Anna's arm and mouthed, "James," and that he would have something to do with food. James, the perfect guy from the perfect date, hadn't worked in food, and he had never called. But Nia had taken it upon herself to lead a quest to find this man for Anna. So when Anna had brought Edward to meet her best friend, Edward, who worked in finance, Nia had been disappointed. When Anna had said she was going to marry this man, Nia had bitten her lip and nodded, looking like she was about to cry. Nia, I can't base my entire life around a prediction that some crazy tarot lady made when I was 22. Okay, first of all, Magda is not crazy. Magda is a genius. And second of all, I don't know. I didn't have a second of all. Do you ever think about him still? James? No, Anna lied. Okay, maybe. You chose Edward, Nia said gently. You married Edward. I know that. So what did you tell him? Nia asked. He's not still waiting for an answer, is he? What did you say? Chapter 2. Yes. Tuesday, 5th of June, 2001. Anna looked up at the clock that hung on the wall. 10 more minutes and she could leave. All she wanted to do was go home, take off her bra, put her comfiest pair of pajamas on, and eat an easy dinner in front of the TV. But Edward had messaged her a few hours ago to say he'd booked a table at their favourite Greek restaurant. At least it was a 5-minute walk from home. Anna? She looked up and saw that Ellie had approached her desk. She and Ellie had started as publicists just over a year before, and because of that, Anna always felt like she was in competition with Ellie when it came to any kind of progression. She looked down at her own protruding belly and thought, not for the first time, that Ellie had won, simply by not being pregnant. Hey, Ellie. Anna, I need help. She was shifting her weight from one foot to the other, and her face was all panic. I was supposed to send out 200 proofs for Wings of a Dove yesterday, and I got my dates mixed up, and I need to do them before I go home tonight, and preferably without Deborah noticing. Any chance you could give me a hand? Anna agreed, but she couldn't hide her irritation. Okay, but let's get on with it. I need to leave in half an hour. When they were done, Anna went to the toilets and sprayed on fresh deodorant, retouched her makeup, and brushed her hair. It would have to do. She was about to disappear into the tube station when her phone rang, Nia. Anna, I'm sorry. I know it's your anniversary. Are you out somewhere? I'm on my way to dinner, but it's okay. Are you all right? Nia sounded like she was out of breath. It's Charlie. He came to my office and tried to follow me home. I ducked into a pub and I'm just waiting for him to leave. What? Anna was on her feet. Where are you? I'll come. But what about your dinner? It's fine. Edward will understand. As she said it, Anna wondered whether that was true. Nia gave her an address, and Anna said she'd be there as soon as she could. While she walked, she called Edward. Hey, I just came out of the tube. Where are you? Anna hesitated. I'm so sorry, Edward. Nia just called, and she needs me. Needs you? For what? His voice was light, like he was on the edge of laughter. You know her mad ex, Charlie. He's following her. She's hiding in a pub. Edward snorted. Convenient. Look, I'm sorry, okay, but I need to go and make sure she's all right. There was a sigh. I'll cancel the booking and see you back at home. You're the best. You know that? I'll see you in a while. As Anna approached the pub, she saw Charlie pacing up and down outside. She slipped past him and in through the double doors. Nia was sitting at the bar on a high stool with a glass of red in her hand. She had her head leaned in close to the barman, and when he finished speaking, she threw it back in laughter. Nia, you said you were cowering in the pub waiting for Charlie to leave. Well, I might as well have a drink while I'm waiting. She held out her hand. Look, shaking. Is he still out there? Yes. I'm so sorry about your anniversary dinner. Yeah, whatever. Get me a drink, will you? Are you still off the booze? Yes, Anna said, sighing. I'm pregnant. That's how it works. You stay off the booze until the baby arrives. Another one of these, Nia said to the barman. And a lime and soda for my friend here. She turned to Anna. This is Josh, by the way. She put particular emphasis on his name. Anna rolled her eyes. Nia, she said in a low voice. I'm married and having a baby. When are you going to stop trying to find my perfect man? Nia shrugged. Just letting you know, that's all. So, about Charlie, do you think he's an actual threat? Nia looked grim and downed the rest of her drink. I don't know, Anna. I mean, he's here, outside. He's been here for about an hour now. And I couldn't have made it any clearer, could I? It's been over for months. We'll face him together. If he's still there when we've finished these, Anna said. And then I need to get home and give my husband his anniversary present. Is it some form of sex? Nia asked. No, it's a bread maker. Don't look at me like that. He really wanted one. First a baby, now a bread maker. I feel like I hardly know you these days. Anna felt sure that Charlie wouldn't still be there when they got up to leave, but she was wrong. He was standing in the shadows, and Anna could see that there was no way to get past without him seeing them. But it seemed that slipping out wasn't Nia's plan anyway. A couple of glasses of wine had emboldened her, and she called out to him. What the hell are you doing, Charlie? Nia. He stepped forward and put his hands on the top of her arms, and Anna didn't like it, the way it held her friend in place. I just want to talk to you. Then call me on the fucking phone. Don't wait for me on the street like a stalker. Charlie looked like he might cry. He turned to Anna. Anna, I don't know why she's being like this. We were good together. Take your hands off her, Anna said. Charlie dropped his hands to his sides. He looked like a little boy. She doesn't want you, Anna said, stepping a little closer to him. Just accept that. It was enough to make him give up. He turned away, looking back once. Anna and Nia stood shoulder to shoulder, making sure he really left. He was always scared of you, Nia said, once he had turned a corner. Scared? Of me? Well, maybe not scared exactly, but intimidated. He said we were the loves of each other's lives. And what did you say? I said my name didn't begin with a J and declined to explain. They walked to the tube, arm in arm, and on the journey, Nia rested her head on Anna's shoulder. Will I see you this weekend? Nia asked. They were standing on the corner where she went one way and Anna went the other. I can do Sunday, Anna said. I'll buy ice cream and crisps and we can watch Sex and the City. Perfect. Anna was starving, she realised as she opened the door to their flat. She found Edward in the living room, lying on the sofa, his eyes on the TV. How's Nia? She's okay. Did you eat? I got takeaway. Yours is in the kitchen. Anna kneeled down and kissed him. Thank you, she said. He sat up and pulled her onto the sofa, put a hand on her small bump. Whenever he did that, Anna felt a rush of excitement about how their lives were changing. She never forgot for long, but whenever she did, the realization was like a jolt. Anna yawned. You stay here. I'll get your food. While she ate, he told her things about his day, his work. Rav was in today, and guess what he told me? What? Him and Eleanor are having a baby too, just a few weeks after us. When she'd finished eating, Edward went over to the stereo and put a CD on. Anna heard the opening bars of the song they'd danced to at their wedding. Something changed. She'd chosen it. It had come out a few years before they got together, and she'd always loved the message of it. About the tiny decisions that took your life off in one direction or another. How every encounter with someone you end up loving could never have happened at all. Dance with me? Edward asked. Anna held out her hands and let him pull her up off the sofa. He held her close, and she felt his pulse in his neck, kissed him there. He was warm and he smelled incredible, and the steady beat of his heart was reassuring, the ultimate comfort. It wasn't until later, when they were in bed and chatting, that he asked her about when she was planning to finish work. Go on maternity, you mean? Edward shrugged. I mean, yes, I guess so. Although I thought you might just give it up once the baby is here. Anna was shocked. She hadn't once considered leaving her job to be a stay-at-home mum. I mean, Edward went on, I earn enough to cover the mortgage and bills and all that, so why not? You could stay at home and it would save us having to face the childcare nightmare. Why not? Anna had 100 reasons, but they all came down to this. She didn't want to. I don't think that's the kind of mum I'm going to be, she said. I like my job. I want to progress, to keep learning. I don't want to be at home all the time. Edward looked a bit pained, the way he did when things didn't quite go his way. Well, there's plenty of time to think about it, I guess. Just keep an open mind about it, okay? We don't need to close off any options just yet. Anna mumbled an agreement because she didn't know how to voice what she was feeling, like she'd been backed into a corner somehow. Edward was asleep within minutes, his breathing slow and steady, but Anna lay on her side for a long time, going back over the conversation, imagining relaying it to Nia. It was over an hour before she felt calm and settled enough to sleep. Chapter 3. No. Tuesday, 5th of June, 2001. How is it 6 o'clock? Anna asked. She looked around her, saw that most people had left already. Her desk mate, Ellie, was still there. They'd had a sandwich together in the canteen at 1, and since they'd got back, Anna had had her head down. It's almost 1:15, actually, said Ellie. I'm heading out in 5. Are you nearly done? I'll have to be. Edward's cooking an anniversary dinner. Oh, fancy. What's he doing? I don't know. Probably pasta. And hopefully something decadent for dessert. Nice, Ellie said. I wish I had someone at home to cook for me. I'll be having toast on the sofa with my weird housemate who collects shoelaces. So spare a thought for me. They closed down their computers and were just about to leave when Deborah appeared by their desks. Just before you go, Anna, did those proofs of wings of a dove go out? Anna breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, 2 days ago. Wonderful, thank you. Have a good evening, you two. Wow, Ellie said once they were out in the corridor. That's the first time she's ever told me to have a good evening. She loves you. Anna smiled. She knew Ellie was joking, but she did feel proud of how she was getting on at work. Enjoy your toast, Anna said when they were outside the building. Enjoy your pasta, and happy anniversary, Ellie called over her shoulder. When Anna walked through the door, she was met with a loud blast of Oasis. She smiled. You wouldn't think it by looking at Edward, but he was obsessed with 90s Britpop. She went through to the kitchen. He hadn't heard her come in, and she watched him for a moment. He was standing at the hob, moving back and forth between 2 pans that both seemed to need attention, and singing Wonderwall at the top of his voice. Anna waited until he'd moved away from the boiling water and then put her arms around his waist from behind. He jumped. Anna, I didn't hear you come in. What are we having? She asked, reaching over to turn the volume down a little. Can I help? No, you go and sit down. I'll let you know when it's ready. She went into the living room, flopped down on the sofa and flicked through the TV channels. There was nothing on, but she left it on an old episode of Friends and let her mind wander until Edward called for her to come in. He changed the music to Pulp, one of the few bands they both liked. He'd set the table too and bought a nice bottle of red wine. Anna smiled at him. Thank you for this, she said. It's lovely. He smiled back but didn't say anything, just gestured for her to sit down and put a bowl in front of her. Surely not pasta, she teased. New recipe, though. Salmon and spinach. Yum. So how was work? Good, busy. The afternoon flew by. I looked up and it was time to go home. You? Edward rubbed his forehead as if the very idea of work was bothering him. Yeah, not too bad. Weren't you seeing Rav today? She asked. How is he? He's well, Edward said, and Anna sensed that there was more there. And Eleanor? Anna thought back to Rav and Eleanor's wedding. How beautiful she had looked, how elegant. Pregnant, Edward said. Oh, that's lovely, Anna exclaimed. And then she saw Edward wince, as if the pregnancy or her reaction to it was causing him physical pain. He hadn't asked her again since she'd said she didn't want to try for a baby, but he made his feelings clear in other ways. And they were at that age, of course, when plenty of friends were announcing pregnancies. This is delicious, Anna said, gesturing at her nearly empty bowl. Edward smiled a little. I thought you'd like it. She noticed that he'd stopped eating and was looking at her. What? This song, It was their song, the one they danced to at their wedding. It felt like so long ago. Edward stood up. Dance with me? Anna pushed back her chair slowly. They weren't a couple who did this, who danced in their flat. But she couldn't say no. He folded her into his arms, and they swayed. She put her head on his chest, felt his heartbeat, its steady thunk. She'd always felt secure in his arms, but now she felt sort of trapped. When her phone rang, they both jumped a little. It's Nia, she said, pulling it out of her pocket. I'd better get it. She's still having problems with that ex, Charlie. Edward pulled a face, but didn't make a move to stop her. Hey, Nia. Hannah, I'm sorry, I know it's your anniversary. It's okay. Are you all right? Not really. It's Charlie. He came to my office and tried to follow me home. I ducked into a pub and now I'm standing in the doorway waiting for him to leave. Text me where you are. I'll come now. Anna hung up. She looked at Edward and he shook his head slowly as if he couldn't believe what she had said. I'm sorry, okay? She needs me. Charlie's following her home. I don't want you to put yourself in danger. She should be calling the police, not you. Anna sighed. I'm her best friend, Edward. Of course she would call me. And I don't think he's dangerous. He's just too persistent. She went out into the hallway, stepped back into her shoes and picked up her bag. Just as she was opening the door, Edward called through. I bought dessert, you know. For you, Anna. I don't even like dessert. She didn't go back, but when she was on the tube, she wondered what the dessert was. She would eat it when she got home, in bed, and then she'd make it up to him. As Anna approached the pub, she saw Charlie pacing up and down outside. She turned her head away and slipped in without being noticed. Nia was sitting at the bar on a high stool with a glass of red in her hand. She stood up when she saw Anna and took her in her arms. You're hardly cowering, Anna remarked. What's a girl to do? You can't exactly wait in a pub and not have a drink. Speaking of which, she turned to the barman. Another of these, please, and one for my friend here. Thank you, Josh. She looked at Anna when she said his name, and Anna couldn't help bursting into laughter. When are you going to stop with that? She asked. I'm just saying. Works in food, too. Well, sells crisps and nuts and stuff. He's still out there, Anna said, noting that Nia hadn't bothered to ask. Charlie. Of course he is. He's obsessed with me. We'll just have to wait him out. Shall I ask Josh to make that a bottle? Anna laughed. I am sorry I interrupted your anniversary dinner, though. In all seriousness, I was pretty scared when I arrived. Wasn't I? She looked over at Josh, who slid the drinks across to them and raised his eyebrows. She did seem concerned. I suggested she call the police rather than her friend, but... That's such a man thing to suggest, Nia said. So what did Edward cook? Pasta? Yes, but a new one, a salmon one. It was really good, actually. And did he make dessert? He bought it, apparently, but we didn't get that far. Anna smiled to show she wasn't annoyed. She tried to push aside the thought that she was glad Nia had called. She felt 100 times happier and more relaxed here with her friend than she had at home with her husband. And that wasn't something she wanted to face up to. You'll have to be dessert when you get home, you lucky thing. Maybe so. But shall we have another one first? I can't believe, said Nia, that you're a proper grown-up who's been married for how many years? 2, Anna said solemnly. You were the maid of honour. You're supposed to remember things like that. Oh, whatever. The years go by like months now we're in our 30s. Anyway, 2 years and I'm still having to call you with problems like being followed home by my ex-boyfriend. Anna motioned to the barman for more drinks and looked down at her bare legs and sandalled feet. I don't feel like a grown-up. Remember Edward's friend, Rav, whose wedding we went to in the spring? They're having a baby. Nia narrowed her eyes. Already? What's wrong with just being married for a while? Nothing, as far as I'm concerned. But not Edward, right? Is he still putting pressure on you? Anna thought about this. He wasn't putting pressure on her, was he? He had asked her once, and she had said no, and he hadn't mentioned it again. But he'd made it clear in 1,000 ways that his feelings on the matter were unchanged. And that was a kind of pressure in itself, wasn't it? And the thing that Anna hadn't told him, that she'd barely told herself, was that she wasn't sure it was just a no for the time being either. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to have children at all. He wants what he wants, Anna said. And I just don't. Not yet, anyway. We should have talked about it before we got married. I think I was putting it off because I didn't know how I felt, and he just assumed I felt the same way he did. Kids, though, Nia said. I don't feel old enough. Me neither. And yet we're 31, and I think we would officially count as old mums these days. No way. Although I have resigned myself to the fact that if I told my mum I was pregnant now, she'd just say congratulations. Anna laughed. We've gone way past the point of scandalous pregnancies. Remember how terrified we were of getting pregnant when we were in our early 20s? I do, Nia said, and I still am. I haven't grown up like you have, and yet here we are drinking wine together on your 2nd anniversary. Yes, Anna said, here we are. Charlie was long forgotten. They had another 2 glasses, and when they got up from their high stools, Anna felt suddenly and overwhelmingly drunk. They left the pub, arm in arm, and there was no sign of Charlie anywhere. Not that they really took the time to look. They shared a taxi. It was almost midnight by the time Anna crawled into bed. Edward had left her bedside lamp on, and she was annoyed by this thoughtful gesture, just when she was feeling guilty for being so thoughtless. He was snoring gently. The present she'd meant to give him, a book of essays by authors and musicians and actors about the one day that had changed their lives the most, was on her bedside table. When she'd first seen it in the bookshop, she'd thought of him, of how he'd talked about the day they met as a turning point for him. She would tell him in the morning, she decided. She would say she wasn't sure about children, full stop. She would get it out in the open and see where it left them. Chapter 4. Yes. Wednesday, 5th of June, 2002. Anna looked at Thomas, who was sitting in front of her in the high chair, refusing to eat the carrot she'd peeled and chopped and cooked and blended for him. The preparation for this one tiny meal that he wasn't eating had been ridiculous. This was her 3rd attempt, and Thomas was yet to swallow anything. She went back to the fridge, cut a long finger of cucumber, ran it under the tap, and handed it to her baby. He put it straight to his mouth and sucked, and Anna took the opportunity to drink some of her lukewarm cup of tea. She thought about sending a message to Edward, telling him that it was a hard day, but thought better of it. It sometimes seemed like every day was a hard day. Edward was sympathetic, but there was only so much he could do. Every morning, when he dressed and prepared to leave the house, she wanted to beg him to change places with her. And every morning, she said nothing. But when he told her to have a nice day on his way out of the door, she felt like pulling the carving knife from the block on the kitchen side and stabbing him in the heart. Now he was on his first work trip since Thomas had been born. New York, all week. Anna had been terrified when he'd first mentioned it, and in time, some of that terror had turned to jealousy. She knew when she was being rational that he'd spend the week in the airport and the office and his hotel room, but her more unhinged self imagined him seeing the sight she'd always longed to see, soaking up that city she'd always been desperate to visit, the one they'd said they would visit together and never had. It was nothing like she'd imagined being a mother. What had she imagined? It was hard to separate it out, now that she was living this life that was definitely not it, now that she hadn't had more than a few hours' sleep in one go for months. Had she given it much thought at all? She'd imagined a baby curled in her arms and sleeping and not much else. How foolish she'd been. She looked at Thomas. He was perfect, doing all the things he should be doing and always causing old women and quite a few young women to squeal and coo in the street. He had Edward's dark hair and eyes, but otherwise it was all her. She adored him, could lose hours just watching him sleep, his eyelids flickering and his fingers gripped tightly around hers. The first time he'd rolled over, she had cried with pride. The day he'd been born, the midwife had put him gently into Anna's arms, and she had waited to fall in love. But it hadn't come at once, in a rush like everyone said it did, and she'd been disappointed. But then a few days later, she'd been lying beside him in bed, Edward snoring, Thomas looking up at her with those big eyes, and her looking back. And she'd just known that this was a love more powerful than anything else. Through her bleary eyes, she'd smiled at him, knowing he couldn't yet smile back. She'd whispered her love into his soft hair. Thomas started to wriggle and squirm, the cucumber long forgotten, abandoned on the high chair tray. "Let's get you out of there," Anna said, and her voice sounded loud in the quiet room. She unstrapped him and lifted him into her arms, caught a hint of that smell he had, the one that made her want to hold him tight to her chest forever. She kissed his forehead and sat him on the playmat, built a wall of cushions around him. He was sitting pretty well, but he still had the occasional tumble. Imagine, Anna thought, not being able to sit on your own bum. She handed him a block for each hand, and he tapped them together and smiled up at her. There were times like this, when he was ridiculously easy to please, and yet so many more when he was screaming and angry and she didn't know what to do. And she hated all the books that talked about recognizing your baby's different cries, because when Thomas cried, she never knew what he wanted. Anna's laptop was open on the coffee table, the cursor blinking. She sent a quick email to Ellie asking how things were at work. She wanted them to remember that she existed. And another to Nia, trying to sound casual, saying they hadn't caught up for a while and could they arrange to go for a drink or something. And then she refreshed her emails a couple of times, hoping one or other of them would be quick to reply. On a whim, she called her mum, not really expecting an answer. Her mum worked as a cleaner in homes and offices, and Anna could never keep track of her hours. "Hello?" Her mother's voice sounded muffled, as if she was at the bottom of a well or had her hand across the phone. "Hi, it's Anna." She always announced herself like that and thought it probably wasn't normal. She'd overheard Nia and Edward on the phone to their own mothers enough to know what normal was. Edward always did a lot of laughing and remember whens, and Nia just started each conversation like it was a continuation of the last, like she did when you saw her. "Anna?" her mum said, her voice now clear. She sounded surprised to hear from her. "How are you?" "Oh, you know." "I don't," thought Anna. Why was it like this? Why was it always so hard? "Work okay?" Work was her mother's favourite subject, always had been. She always had a story about one of the other cleaners or someone who lived in one of the houses. Her stories ran the full gamut from cancer survival to losing luggage on holiday. She launched into one then, and Anna zoned out a little. When there was a pause, she willed her mother to ask about Thomas. He cried out then, and she picked him up. "How are things there? How are Edward and Thomas?" Anna let out a big breath and felt grateful. And then she was sad for the fact that this was such a small thing, and it wasn't guaranteed. "Edward's in New York with work this week. It's hard. Oh, New York is all right for some, isn't it? Well, he'll be working long hours, but yes, it's a nice trip. Anna felt like she was always defending her mother to Edward, or defending Edward to her mother. It wasn't even as if they actively disliked one another. They barely had a relationship. Thomas is starting to sit up, she said, trying to change the subject. He will be, I suppose. Anna wasn't sure what she meant by that. That he was the right age for it, she supposed. And he was. But that hadn't stopped her from hoping for something approaching enthusiasm. It was clear that the conversation was over, but Anna knew from experience that she would have to be the one to end it. If she didn't, they'd sit there in near silence for hours. I'd better go, I guess. Yes, I'm sure you have plenty to do. There was silence where there might have been a thanks for the call or have a nice day. Anna ended the call, wishing she'd never made it. It was a little after 12. It felt like a lifetime since she'd been woken by Thomas that morning, and the hours to go before his bedtime stretched ahead. They would have to go.